Today on Locked On Red Wings, taking a look at Patrick Kane's performance through this young season.
You're Locked On Red Wings, your daily podcast on the Detroit Red Wings. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Red Wings podcast. We are your hosts, Brian Fisher and Scotty Bentley. Scotty's host over at Locked On Tigers, as well as a freelance journalist for the Detroit News, while I am the color commentator for Oakland University D1 Hockey. And on today's episode, we want to kind of take a look at Patrick Kane so far this season. On the score sheet, he's 8 points in 11 games, which is a pretty decent pace for a guy who's 35, 36 years old. But analytically and to the eye test, I feel like we have felt there's some things left to be desired, and we'll talk about that in this episode. But before we get to that, got to talk to you guys today about FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com today to get started. The Patrick Kane stuff, I wanted to talk to you guys about it today because I have personally felt, and I have a feeling this is going to be a very controversial episode amongst our listener base, because Patrick Kane is a Hockey Hall of Famer. He will be a Hockey Hall of Famer, and he has done so much in the game of hockey on the ice that has brought success to the teams that he has played on. But so far through this early season, I have felt that this is not the Patrick Kane that we saw last season, who just every time he touched the puck was untouchable himself. And the advanced analytics back that up, despite the fact that he has 11 points in 11 games, which is solid production. That's good production on this team that is lacking production in a lot of the different areas. What did I say? 8 points in 11 games.
You said 11 and 11. I was like, wow, he went up a few.
Yeah, I'm manufacturing points here. But, with all that being said, that's great and all. His 5-on-5 metrics are abysmal. And, Jay Fresh mentioned it yesterday, and it really lined up with things that I was seeing on the ice. If you were to filter the league by forwards who have played at least 50 minutes on the ice on natural stat trick, you filter this by Corsi 4 percentage at 5-on-5, which is shot attempt share. Patrick Kane is listed at, I have it listed at the top. He's the fourth worst in the league at shot share per game at 5-on-5. Overall, if you do unblocked shot share, he is fourth worst in the league. Shot share, just overall shots on net, when he is on the ice, he is a 31%, which is second worst of the league at 5-on-5 with at least 50 minutes played. And expected goals for percentage, he is at, I think, 11th worst in the league. Those are very bad metrics for a guy who, over his course of his career, is built a Hall of Fame resume. And, that brings me to my question is, despite the fact that he's producing, right? 8 points in 11 games is great. He's also tied for second at 5-on-5 production, too, which flies in the face of those advanced analytics that I just cited off. Shot share is not advanced analytics. It's literally shots for versus shots against when you're on the ice. What is going on here? Why are we seeing this, Scotty?
Well, honestly, I think this is one where the eye test and the analytics are really kind of lockstep. Like, to me, that, like, when you watch the Wings play, it is noticeable how slow he is in the defensive zone. And I guess just like kind of slow on skates, period, these days, which is obviously not what he's been his whole career. But that doesn't matter to his offense, which is why I only really specify the defensive side of the puck. Like, offensively, we know that he can stand still and be a half point a game player. Like, he doesn't need to skate at all, because that's how talented he is at just the game of hockey in general, but especially with the puck on his stick. He's a maestro. He's a master with it. Right. Like, that is not a part of this conversation. I want to make that abundantly clear. But defensively, man, there was one play, I think it was 2 games ago, where the puck was in the neutral zone and he went for a forecheck and was like a part of an aggressive forecheck by the team in the neutral zone. He went completely whiffed, just did not do anything, like just skated right past the puck handler and then never rejoined the play. Like he skated past the dude with the puck in the neutral zone. There was a zone entry by the opponent to get into their offensive zone, our defensive zone, and Patrick Kane was just gone because he just skated past the guy and didn't turn around, obviously, in enough time. So like it's one of those things where it's very apparent on one side of the ice, and it's not as apparent on the offensive side of the ice, where, as you said, he's producing and still has 8 points in 11 games. So I think this conversation isn't, at least from my perspective, isn't meant to be like this dude is terrible. And I know you said that before we hit record too. Like, this dude isn't just like awful. It's figuring out how to utilize him best at this point in his career and looking ahead the rest of the season. Is there any level of concern despite the offensive production?
Right. And I think that you raised some good points there, right? The thing that I've noticed a lot too is he does feel like he's lost a step this year, which is insane to say because all offseason we were like, this is a guy who was great last year coming off of a hip surgery that no one has ever come back off of. And he was fantastic. He was a point per game last year in 40 games played? He had 40 points or something like that. He was incredible. So we're like, full offseason to train. He's going to come back and he's going to look even better. Like we're thinking 90 points from Patrick Kane. Maybe not 90 points, but you know what I mean? Like point per game player still. Going to keep that pace. And so far this season, he looks slower than he did last year, despite having that full season of training. I also don't think he's necessarily being overly engaged along the boards. I think a lot of the time he tries to rely on his stick work to work the puck out of these battles. He doesn't engage with his body a whole lot, which is leading to a lot of lost puck battles on his side of the ice. Again, you mentioned it defensively, but that's Patrick Kane. That's his MO. He's never been a defense first. He's always been of the mindset, and I'm not going to say it's the incorrect mindset because it's got merit. The best way to defend is to have the puck in the offensive zone. And so he's never put a ton of effort into playing defensively.
And his team right now never has the effing puck. So, like, that is a huge, right? Like, this is almost a gear on a much bigger, factory almost of
right.
Like, it's one piece of this puzzle. And like, yeah, I think Patrick Kane would probably look a lot better if we consistently had the puck in the zone and we actually the Wings gave him the ability to like set up shop at, the wherever, the corner, wherever he wants to kind of run the offense through. And that just hasn't been a thing because we literally never have the puck. In our possession metrics, we lose every single game.
Precisely. That was exactly where my second point was going to be. He himself has to be part of the solution, right? Like he cannot rest on his laurels and just wait for his teammates to get him the puck, no matter what his age is or what his health status is. Like if you're going to be on the ice, you have to be able to contribute on your own end. But to what you just said, the team as a whole has been abysmal at getting the puck. And if you can't get the puck, you can't get him the puck. And if you can't get him the puck, he's not going to be able to show off his greatest strengths, which is puck handling, vision, things that no matter how old you get, you're going to be able to maintain. His IQ is still very much there, and he's able to showcase it the most on the power play. On the power play is when you see vintage Patrick Kane.
Because you have the puck.
You get the puck, you give him time and space, and he's able to figure it out. I mean, there was a game last week, or was it 2 weeks ago now, that we won. The Red Wings won because Patrick Kane made 2 incredible plays on the power play. So, like, the stuff that makes Patrick Kane is still in there, but it's partly himself looking like he's lost a step and he's not really engaging defensively, but also the team as a whole not being able to win possession to put him in positions to succeed. And that brings me to my next point, which is, system and deployment, which I'll get into in segment 2 of Locked On Red Wings. So stay tuned.
It's a pro tease right there.
I'm getting a little bit better day by day, and then sometimes I get way worse depending on the day. I got to talk to you guys today about Indeed. We're driven by the search for better, but when it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate isn't to search at all. Don't search, match with Indeed. If you need to hire, you need Indeed. Indeed is your matching and hiring platform with over 350 million global monthly visitors, according to Indeed data, and a matching engine that helps you find quality candidates fast. Ditch the busy work. Use Indeed for scheduling, screening, and messaging so you can connect with candidates faster. And Indeed doesn't just help you hire faster. 93% of employers agree Indeed delivers the highest quality matches compared to other job sites, according to a recent Indeed survey. Leveraging over 140 million qualifications and preferences every day, Indeed's matching engine is constantly learning from your preferences, so the more you use Indeed, the better it gets. Join more than 3.5 million businesses worldwide that use Indeed to hire great talent fast. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/lockedon. Just go to Indeed.com/lockedon right now and show our show support by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed.
Indeed you do.
Got to also talk to you guys today about FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, if you live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets when you place your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Segment 2, Locked On Red Wings podcast. Thank you for joining us, Scotty. Want to talk a little bit about Patrick Kane in the Derek Lalonde system, because I do think that might play. Okay. You're here. Hi.
Yeah, I was muted. I don't know how that happened.
Oh, you're good. Yeah,
that was a complete disaster of a transition. I just screwed that up like 3 different ways.
Well, I'll make sure that I bring that up in your next performance review. Anyways.
Okay. Yeah, you definitely host my performance reviews for sure.
So Derek Lalonde's system, and this is something we've talked about going back to last year, is very defensive oriented. And one of the strengths, and this is something we'll talk about tomorrow, is there are some positives that have been very apparent so far this year through this system. Notably, cutting down on rebounds out front and high danger opportunities out front. And we'll talk about that tomorrow when we talk about the things this team has been doing well. But when you have a team that so heavily relies on a system that is defensive responsibility from all players on the ice. And I'm not saying that's necessarily wrong, because I hear that, and that's music to my ears as a defenseman. I'm like, yes, everybody involved in the D zone, let's go. But you have a bunch of players that are historically run and gun. You have a run and gun offensive group trying to play a get in the zone and dig deep in the corners to win possession type defense. And I do think that combined with the increased quality of competition that they're giving Patrick Kane this season is what's hurting his analytics. And I'm not saying that to defend him. I'm just bringing it up as a reason why. Because last season, if you go to Puck IQ and you look at his quality of competition compared to last year, this year he's getting 41% of his time on the ice against elite competition. This is Patrick Kane. That should be the expectation. I'm not saying that that's wrong. But last year, when he saw so much success with the puck, he saw just, if I can find him again here, he faced just 29% against elite, and it was 41% against the middle of the pack in competition. He got faced with much softer quality of competition last year in his 40 games with the Detroit Red Wings, 49 games with the Detroit Red Wings, than he has so far through 11 games this season, which is part of the reason I think against the Buffalo Sabres, Scotty, he got bumped up to line 1 and put Lucas Raymond on line 2, because that Lucas Raymond's line with JT Compher and Andrew Kopp saw incredibly tough competition against the Sabres, while Larkin with Kane and DeBrincat saw incredibly soft competition by comparison. I think they were trying to shelter Patrick Kane to try and unlock a little bit more of that offense, because it's not putting him with Compher and Kopp and asking him to play a more defensive role is not benefiting Patrick Kane, thus not benefiting the team.
Right. And I think that honestly, that is like the big overarching question here is, okay, so if his value is almost exclusively in the offensive zone at this point, what do you do with the lineup card to best utilize that, right? Like that is an asset. And like 8 points in 11 games is a fantastic pace for him.
Right.
But is putting him with JT Compher the best for either of them, right? JT Compher, you really want to be a two-way center that can be a guy that's a plus in the defensive zone. Is putting him with Patrick Kane the best way for either of them, right? Is when it comes to deployments. This kind of is turning into like a reverse of the shutdown line. And I think that's why at the start of the season, they had Vlad and Kane together. They were just like, screw it. We're just going to put these two guys on a line together, and they're just going to be the offensive deployment line. And now that the quote unquote shutdown line has been broken up and everything is kind of getting shuffled and the lines are becoming a little bit more balanced over the last few games, you have to figure out how to use Patrick Kane within this, like, presumably it's going to continue to be more balanced, distribution of offensive and defense down the lineup card. So that's a very long-winded way of just saying, like, I think that really is the biggest question mark here is who does he play with and where do you put him? I think it would. You want your top six to be lines that you can use in any situation. And I feel that we are, if you're not there yet, at least from what we've seen so far, approaching a conversation of, like, can we have him on the ice no matter, like, regardless of the situation?
Yeah, I think that's really what it comes down to is, like, I'm not in the business of making excuses for a Hall of Famer, right? Like, Patrick Kane is a future Hall of Famer, and I don't think it's wrong to expect more of him on the ice at 5-on-5 in terms of, like, shot share and shot attempt share. I don't think that's, ridiculous. But at the same time, it's a two-way street. It cuts both ways. You got to do a better job of putting a guy who you have an entire career's worth of tape on, putting him in a situation where he's going to succeed at doing what he does best.
Right.
Like asking a guy, and I don't know if this is what's happening, but I'm just going based on what I know of Derek Lalonde and his system. So I don't mean to put the blame on Derek Lalonde either. Again, it's a two-way street. But, like, you can't ask a guy who historically has always been offense first type of guy, I want to possess the puck in the offensive zone, and that's how we play defense, to then get in the defensive zone and be lights out. Like, I don't think that that's right also. Like, you got to find a way to balance who you have on your roster with the system that you want to run. And I think that right now that Patrick Kane's a little bit of a victim of that. But at the same time, you got to rise to the occasion because you're one of the most talented players on the planet, regardless of age. So
right.
it cuts both ways. I mean, he's partly to blame for his analytics being so poor, but at the same time, like, you got to put him in a situation. And Derek Lalonde tried again in Buffalo. They gave him very sheltered deployments in that game with Dylan Larkin by comparison to the second line, which took up all the slack. Lucas Raymond got ridiculously hard deployments in that game because Patrick Kane couldn't handle, at least in my estimation. Now, you can also have the conversation, that's what you want out of Lucas Raymond because he's young, spry, and has rounded out his game, so I'm not so super mad at that.
And again, it's
but
what
he
you
got
want
knocked
out
off the first line. Right.
Right? That's what you, like, again, this isn't like a bashing of him. This is just like, how do you utilize him to get the most out of everybody and make the team the best? And I think that that is the puzzle that the coaching staff is trying to figure out right now. Like, how do you him, and I guess you can throw Vlad in there too. Very similar conversation, although maybe not as dramatic. Like, where do you put them in the lineup card to put them in a position where they are going to help the team the most and hurt the team the least, which is them being in the offensive zone.
Yeah, and to put them in the offensive zone, you have to have the puck more, which again is a team problem.
Right.
So, like, it's not. When we talk about these bad analytics for Patrick Kane and we are trying to explain why they may look this way, like, it's an understanding that partly to blame is him, partly to blame is coaching, and partly to blame is the entire team. It's all symptoms of the same problems we are seeing team-wide. Scotty, let's take another quick break, and when we return, I do want to talk about the fact that he got 8 points in 11 games and why, despite these poor metrics, he is finding success still on the score sheet. So stay tuned to segment 3 of Locked On Red Wings.
So ridiculous.
You love me. Prize Picks is the best place to get real money sports action with over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings. Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. Run your game all season long on Prize Picks. Prize Picks puts the members first, so all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. When my picks hit, I can get my money in as quick as 15 minutes. Prize Picks also offers Venmo for quick and easy deposits and withdrawals into your account this sports season. Prize Picks also offers weekly promotions that can lead to big payouts like Taco Tuesday. Each Tuesday, Prize Picks discounts select player projections up to 25% to provide even more value for your lineups. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONNHL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's LOCKEDONNHL to get $50 instantly if your first $5 lineup hits. Prize Picks, run your game. Segment 3, Locked On Red Wings podcast. Scotty, despite all the things we're mentioning about the 5-on-5 play that we have seen and underneath the surface with the analytics, he does have 8 points in 11 games, which we have mentioned. So why is Patrick Kane still finding success on the score sheet, despite the fact that on the ice, it feels like he's a step behind?
Because he's Patrick Kane. I mean, we can break it down a little bit more than that, obviously, but like that's kind of my answer. Like that's where I think this conversation starts and ends. Like the dude is still one of the greatest passers and has some of the best vision that this sport has ever seen. And that's still very much a part of his game. And when he has the puck on his stick for a prolonged period of time, good things happen almost every single time. And that is why we are having this conversation and desperately trying to find out what the best way to utilize him truly is, because he can be such a positive asset and already has shown that he can be this season, no less, a big time positive asset to this team. I think that, I mean, we kind of mentioned a little bit earlier as well, he's still an absolute dog on the power play. And like
yes.
that is again, as we alluded to earlier, because the power play is kind of as close as you can get in a hockey game to guaranteed possession, right? Like it's the closest you're going to get to, all right, you have to be really like screw something up to not have possession of the puck for the next 2 minutes, right? Like, so I think that is why he is at his best there, is because that is the biggest strength of his game at this point in his career. It's about finding out how to do that, outside of just power play opportunities, how to do that on even strength. But that is why we have seen so much production still, is because on the power play, it's a lot of offense, a lot of set in the offensive zone, and not a lot of defense. And that's the type of play style that really lines up with his skill set at this point.
Yeah, I mean, 50% of his points so far this season have come on the power play. 4 of his points have come on the power play, 1 goal and a total of 3 assists. And that's, like you said, not to reiterate everything you just said, but that's where he excels. He gets the time, so he gets the space, so he gets the vision. It's all there. And that's primarily the reason even at 5-on-5, he still has 4 points, which is tied for second on the team. He's still tied for second on the team in 5-on-5 points. And that's because of those factors. When the Red Wings do get possession of the puck, and they do get the opportunity to, set up in the offensive zone, it's Patrick Kane with the puck on his stick who can make the most dangerous plays or make his teammates dangerous by proxy, because he still has that vision, that stick handling, that he's always had, that passing ability, because those things don't age poorly. It's speed that'll age. It's physicality that'll age. Those are the things that leave you first. But if you're a player who can think the game, that's how you stay in the game and you become a Hall of Famer. That's why Patrick Kane is still in the game. That's why Sidney Crosby is still in the game. That's why Alex Ovechkin does one thing really well, and they still haven't been able to stop him, but he does that thing really, really well. Like, if you find that one thing that you're really, really, really good at and you're able to maintain it, the other parts of your game can start to decay and you can still be an effective NHL. Steven Stamkos, another great example. Sure. He's in a similar situation where it's more on the goal-scoring side of things rather than the playmaking side of things, but he's really good at scoring on the power play. That's where a lot of his production came from last year with the Tampa Bay Lightning with his 40 goals. Most of that came on the power play. But because he's really good at scoring goals, he's been able to maintain that production. So Patrick Kane's actually been able to compensate for his shortcomings with his skill in the offensive zone. It's the fact that they can't get in the offensive zone enough for him to compensate enough, at all the times, enough to make up for the fact that they never have the puck. That's the problem, is
right.
him as an individual and they as a team and they as a system don't have the puck enough for him to be able to showcase that at his age. And that's really what it comes down to. Again, just to kind of loop back to where we began.
I agree.
Good job. We got about 4 minutes left. I know we talked about it briefly on last week. Last week. I don't remember the exact day. But I know I kind of stated what my hope for November was. But I never really asked you what you were hoping to get out of this November schedule, with it being lighter in quality of competition as opposed to last month. What are you hoping to get out of November, Scotty?
I think when we talked about October, it was just such a I don't know, almost like fear-based reaction. It was like, wow, they have a crazy schedule to start off the season. When looking at October, you have especially there's a stretch there. Actually, it's your West Coast stretch that I think is very much on the table to get 4 to even 6 points on, right? You have at Ducks, at Kings, at Sharks. I think you should be expecting to begin and end that road trip with 2 points. And even you play the Flames. They have gotten off to a decent start this year, but they're certainly not what they were. You have the Blackhawks on Wednesday, which we'll preview tomorrow. There are opportunities in November that were not present for you in October. And so while you still have, you face the Bruins, you face the Devils, you face the Rangers, the Leafs, you still have your tough opponents. Obviously, no month is just going to be like a complete cakewalk from start to finish. I think the floor going forward should be what we just saw. And I think that's my biggest kind of outlook going forward, is if this is truly as tough as a schedule is going to get in this season, then the month of October, that around 500 hockey team should be the floor going into every month. And we should look to build on that. And on the non-crazy difficult months like November, you should have, well over 500 kind of in your sights. And I know that you said something rather similar there. I think that obviously we're looking for wins, and we're looking to stay into this, playoff race and whatnot throughout the entire season. To end this conversation with the theme of this entire episode, I would just love to actually possess the puck for 60 minutes at some point. That'd be really sweet. I would really like to win the possession, right? To win the possession battle in any game would be really, really cool. So I think that you have some opportunities to try some things against some lesser opponents that are not very good. You haven't been able to say that literally with a single opponent all year so far this year. And I think that is kind of what I'm looking for most, is okay, in the games against those bottom of the barrel teams, what are the lineup cards looking like in those games? Because those are presumably, not that it's just any game is a cakewalk, these are all professionals and whatnot, right. But I think that you might see a little bit more lineup shuffling in those games because they feel like they have the freedom to a little bit more.
Yeah, and you mentioned the hot start the Flames have gotten out to. They've actually lost now 5 of their last 6. So they won 4 games out of the gate. They actually won 5 of 6 to start and have lost 5 of 6 since. So they've really come back down to earth. They're 6-5-1. So I'm not really overly concerned about a hot Flames team anymore like I was 2 weeks ago. This is a very manageable month. I know I set the bar as 8-5 last week rather, to get yourself back to a projection of 90 points on the season. 8-5 month would be in a vacuum would be like a 100-point projection. But once you combine it with October's results, it'd be a 90-point projection. So,
right.
Yeah, I think that's where you got to be. I think that you got to do 8-5. I don't know if you feel similarly. If you even want to assign a number to it, just play better overall. A more nebulous approach to the.
No, I don't know if I have like. The season is so fluid, and we've seen such like hot stretches and cold stretches from this team over the last 2 years. Like, I don't think like if they go 6-6 or 6-7, whatever the math is, in November, that they're like automatically out of it. You know what I mean? Like we've just seen, so much weirdness with really all the teams in this city over the last couple of years with stuff like that. So I don't think month 2 of the year you have like a must obtain record, but like, yeah, I would obviously love for them in a much easier month than what they just showed. Again, I think this should be kind of the bar, and this should be the bottom of at least what we are expecting on any given month. And so, yeah, I think just better than what we just saw would be a step in the right direction.
Absolutely. Scotty, any final thoughts, brother?
We ball.
We do well. We'll be back with a new episode tomorrow. We'll talk about what this team does well. A little bit of a positive note through these first 11 games. So stay tuned for that. Same time, same place. It's your team every day.